Hi everyone, it's Christy from First Day of Home. Father's Day is coming up, so it's a great time to make some DIY gifts for Dad. I'll be using my xTool P2 laser cutting machine to make a custom notebook for Dad. You can get this cut file over on my blog. I will put a link in the description box down below. And I have a special bonus for you today. I'll be joining two channels, Jane and Sonia from Sustain My Craft Habit and Sarah from Ruffles and Rain Boots. Both of these channels have free cut files for you, so don't miss out on checking out their channels at the end of this video. Let's start by opening the files in xTool Creative Space. On this first tab, you'll see our covers of the journal that say Dad's Journal. This is going to be a mix of cutting elements and engraving, like this motif here. You can play around with this. Right now I have journal as engrave, and then this border on the front and back cover I have as score. We're going to play around with that a little bit later. Then we have some holes, of course, that we will cut with the laser machine. And on the second tab, you're going to see some dividers. I'll be engraving the names in the dividers like you see here, and then of course the shape we will be cutting out of acrylic. You can go play around with this, change up the names of the dividers if you like, or you can skip the dividers altogether. It's really your choice. I'm going to go ahead and refresh my screen here on my P2. We're not going to see anything just yet, but we'll go ahead and finish formatting our file. I'm going to select the front cover and hit ignore so it won't process, and we will cut our back cover first. I'm using this 3mm basswood plywood in my machine, and it's a great beginner-friendly board to use. Then I always like to put these material clamps around my board just to prevent things from shifting once we start laser cutting. Back in the software, when we hit refresh, we should now see our basswood. I'm going to move this front cover out of the way again. We're going to cut that later. Then we'll scoot our back cover over onto the plywood and try to optimize the space a little bit. It's always nice to have some leftover plywood when you're done with your project. I'm going to double check that I have output selected. Then I'm going to choose slats flat since I just have my slats in the machine. And then for the material, again, I'm using 3mm basswood plywood. And then I'll click auto measure to make sure my measurements look good. And that's about it. We're going to hit process and then start. And before we hit start on the machine, of course, you'll want to make sure you're venting to the outside and using your smoke purifier if you have one. This is what the machine looked like in real time, and it took maybe 5 to 7 minutes or so to do the back cover. I went ahead and scored that border as I mentioned, so this didn't take a lot of time to complete. I love how neat and clean these lines look. So this is a peek at the back cover. Let's go ahead and customize the front cover to show you some different options. So I'll place a new piece of plywood inside the machine and head over to Creative Space. I'm going to hit ignore on that back cover since we already processed that and scoot over my front cover. If you need to group or ungroup, you can do that. Now I'm going to change this border to engrave to show you what that would look like. And then this Dad's name needs to be either engrave or score because otherwise it would actually cut out some of the insides of the letters. So I went ahead and made that change. Then I selected my material again as basswood plywood and hit auto measure. Again, just making sure that we're going to output this now and ignore the back cover. Then we hit process, start, and begin laser cutting. Because we added more engraving to the front cover design, this did take about 35 minutes to process. I did run into one small issue when I was in the middle of this job. As you know, you should never leave your laser machine unattended while it's processing. But I had to go meet my kids at the bus stop, so I had to pause this job. And to do that, you just hit pause in xTool Creative Space, or you can press the button on the machine itself. This is a great option to make sure that you maintain safety, but take care of life when it happens. So don't forget that's a great option for you, and when you are ready to hit resume, it will process the job as normal. I had no issues whatsoever doing this. Now that our notebook covers are done, we can turn to the dividers inside using some acrylic. I'll be using some teal opaque acrylic, and you can choose from the menu here just an option that's going to be real similar. You always have this option of clicking more and typing in your material if you don't see it. I'll go ahead and choose a red glossy opaque acrylic, which is similar to the one I'm using. I'm going to use this piece of acrylic I have left over from my last tutorial on the P2 and cutting acrylic. If you're using a brand new sheet, make sure you remove all of the plastic from both the front and back before putting it in your machine and using the material clamps. Again, we'll hit refresh in our xTool Creative Space software. Then I'm going to select any images that I don't want to cut and click ignore and move them off of the acrylic that I'm previewing. And we'll just go through formatting and making sure that we're getting our design nicely formatted onto our camera preview here. I'm just going to make sure that what I want to cut is selected as cut and the engraved pieces are selected as engrave. We double check our material, laser slats flat, and then I'll auto measure before hitting process. This is sped up 200% just to give you an idea of how long it takes to cut and engrave acrylic. It only took about 2 to 3 minutes to engrave this divider here, so we're going to repeat this process with the next 2 dividers. Again, you can add more or fewer depending on how you want to customize your Father's Day notebook. The thing to remember is to toggle between output and ignore if you have more than one design on your workspace, and then refresh the screen to format your design wherever you want the machine to cut it. I'm going to go ahead and process these next 2 dividers in my notebook, and then we'll come back and assemble the whole thing. Here's a look at all of the notebook pieces that we've cut out. You can see that the dividers have those nice tabs engraved on the edge. You remember on the back cover we scored that border, so here's a comparison of the front cover to the back cover. Scoring takes a lot less time, so that's something to consider. And then I have these free printable notebook pages for you. They have a weekly planner, notes pages, and a to-do list, so feel free to grab these along with your free cut file. And you'll notice if you print double-sided, one has a thinner border along the side and the other page has a thicker border. This is because we're going to punch holes on the side with a thicker border, and I'll show you in just a minute. I bought these rings that are 1-inch rings to assemble my notebook. If you want to add more pages, I would go larger on the ring size. I'm just going to cut some of these double-sided pages so we can start assembling our notebook and punching holes. I designed this notebook with 4 holes, so I will have to do these manually, but you can always change up the design, do 3 hole punches instead of 4, and make it your own. I'm just giving you a nice starting point so that you can customize it as you like. I found that the easiest way to assemble this is to get all of your rings lined up with the outer covers. Then you can take a few pieces, have your notebook organized the way you want. You can even add a personalized note for Dad at the beginning. And then I'll start with the first divider and place it on the back of the front cover and just continue adding the pages before snapping my rings shut. There's so many ways to customize this design with other images based on whatever the special dad in your life enjoys. And don't forget that we have more free cut files for you from my friends. I'll put a link to the playlist down in the description box. Be sure to check them out, and I'll see you next time.